A friend calls and says one word, "Hello," and before they say anything else, you already know exactly who it is. Not their words, not their accent, the texture of them, the specific grain of that one voice. We are so good at this that a baby does it. Now hold that next to a single, unsettling fact. Until just a few years ago, copying a particular person's voice, well enough to fool you, took hours of clean recordings and a custom model trained just for them. Today it takes about 3 seconds of audio, 3 seconds of anyone talking, pulled from a voicemail, a video, a podcast, and a machine can read any sentence you like in that voice, with their warmth and their pauses and their little hesitations. And here is the thing you have to sit with, because the whole episode lives in it. That one capability is, at the same instant, the magic and the menace of this entire field. The same 3 seconds that lets a person who lost their voice to illness speak again in their own voice is the 3 seconds that powers a phone scam aimed at their grandmother. Today we are going to see exactly how a voice gets copied, why it is so easy, and the single line that separates a wonderful tool from a weapon. Spoiler: that line is not technical at all. To see why 3 seconds is enough, you need one idea. And if you saw how AI makes music, you already have it, so we will move fast. A machine does not store a voice as a wall of raw sound. Raw sound is brutal, tens of thousands of numbers every second, far too many to predict one at a time. So first a piece called a codec listens to speech and crushes it down. Instead of all those raw numbers, it hands you a short stack of tokens, discrete little symbols, an alphabet for sound. A few of these tokens can stand in for a slice of speech that would have been thousands of raw numbers. And once a voice is just a short sequence of tokens, generating speech becomes the thing this whole season keeps coming back to. Get the tokens right, then let the codec turn them back into a wave. You can auto-complete those tokens the way a language model auto-completes words, or you can start from noise and denoise into them like a painting. Either way, the same compress, generate, decode skeleton you already know. That is the recap. Here is the part that is new, and it is the secret of the entire episode. Those tokens are not all the same kind of thing, and the difference between them is exactly why your voice can be stolen. Take that short stack of tokens for a slice of speech and pull it apart. It turns out the tokens fall roughly into 2 families. The first family carries the what is being said, the words, the rhythm of the language, the content. Strip a sentence down to just these tokens and you would still know the message, but it could be spoken by almost anyone. The second family carries the who, the timbre, the pitch, the particular color of a voice, the thing that let you recognize your friend from a single hello. The what and the who, riding in the same little stack, but in different layers of it. Now I have to be honest, because this channel teaches how things actually work, not a cartoon. This split is not perfectly clean. It is more of a gradient than a wall, and it only shows up so neatly when the codec was deliberately built to separate them, often by borrowing the what layer from a model trained just to capture meaning. In a plain codec, the families blur together. But to a real and useful degree, modern voice systems do carry these 2 threads side by side, roughly, the what and the who. Hold on to that picture, because once you can see the what and the who as separate dials, voice cloning stops being magic and becomes almost obvious. So here is the trick, and it is genuinely just this. You get 3 seconds of someone talking. You throw away the what, the words they happen to say, you do not care. What you keep is the who, the timbre layer, the color of their voice. Now you write whatever you want, generate fresh what tokens for your new sentence, and roughly clamp the who-ish layers to the ones you lifted from those 3 seconds. The model auto-completes the rest, and out comes your sentence in their voice. Keep the who, swap the what. That is the whole idea of zero-shot cloning, and zero-shot means the magic part. There is no training, no custom model for that person, no hours in a studio. You hand the system a stranger's 3 seconds as a prefix, and it just continues in that voice. The very same in-context trick a language model uses when you give it a few examples and it follows the pattern. How good is it? On a narrow laboratory test, where someone reads a clean, scripted sentence in a quiet room, researchers reported what they called human parody, meaning listeners could not reliably tell the clone from a real recording of that person. Hold that result with both hands. It is a narrow benchmark scripted reading in quiet, not a real phone call, not every voice, not a long conversation. But it is real, and it tells you the comfortable assumption that you could always just hear that something is fake is, for short clips, already gone. Before we get to the part that matters most, a quick map of how these systems are actually built, because there are two camps and people argue about them, and the honest answer is that both are alive and both are excellent. The first camp treats audio tokens exactly like words and auto-completes them, one after another, left to right. That is the codec language model, and because it generates in order, it streams naturally and figures out its own timing as it goes. The second camp does not autocomplete at all. It generates the whole utterance in parallel, starting from noise and flowing it into clean speech in a few big steps, which can be faster and very smooth. Neither one is the winner. Many of the best systems in 2026 stitch them together. And on top of both, the real frontier moved past reading a sentence aloud. The newest conversational systems are full duplex, which is a fancy way of saying they listen and talk at the same time, like a person. You can interrupt them mid-word, they pause, they come back, all in about the time it takes a human to react. Some even keep a running inner monologue, predicting the words they are about to say a beat before they say them, so the speech stays coherent. The interesting, humbling finding from the people building these: with no context, listeners genuinely cannot tell their system from a human. Give it the back and forth of a real conversation, though, and people still just barely prefer the human. The gap is closing. It is not quite closed. Now the part everyone should understand, because the technology we just built does not care what it is used for. The exact same machine that lets a person who is losing their voice to illness bank it and keep speaking in their own sound, that narrates an audiobook, that dubs a film into 40 languages, is the machine behind a call that copies a child's voice to frighten their parent into wiring money. Reported figures here are eye-watering: a single faked executive on a video call draining tens of millions, voice scam attempts surging many times over in a year, but treat those numbers as reported by the people who sell security, not audited fact. The direction is what is real, and it is up. So if the same tool builds the gift and the weapon, what actually separates them? Not the model, not the audio. There is exactly one line, and it is not technical. It is consent. Did the owner of that voice say yes? Your own voice, an actor who agreed and was paid, a licensed library voice. That is creation, and it is wonderful. A real person who never agreed. That is impersonation, full stop, and on this channel we never cross that line, not even for a demonstration, which is why every voice you have heard us clone today was a generic, made-up one. And notice who agrees with that line. The lab that built the most convincing cloning system, the one that hit human parity, looked at what it could do and chose not to release it to the public at all, citing exactly this risk. A thing being possible was not, to them, the same as a thing being permitted. Consent is the rule, but rules need enforcement, so how do we actually cope in a world where anyone can be made to say anything? The first and most hopeful tool is a watermark. When a responsible system generates a voice, it can hide a faint, inaudible pattern inside the sound itself, something you cannot hear but a detector can, a quiet signature that says this was made by AI. The clever modern versions can even mark every fraction of a second, so the signature survives if a fraudster splices 3 real seconds onto a fabricated sentence. The two biggest labs in this space recently agreed to stack 2 of these together, a signed certificate attached to the file plus a watermark baked into the sound, so that when one gets stripped the other survives. That is genuinely good, and it is the most concrete safety progress of the year. But now I have to tell you the hard truth, and it is the single most important sentence in this whole episode. Watermarks can be removed. Researchers have shown that simply shifting the pitch a little or running the audio back through a compressor can wipe the signature out almost completely, and an attacker can even paint a new fake watermark over the old one. Worse, an openly available cloning model can just be told never to add a watermark in the first place. So a watermark raises the cost of lying. It does not make lying impossible. Never, ever believe the reverse of the rule. The absence of a watermark does not mean a clip is real. If watermarks are not a wall, and if you are now worried, good, that is the correct reaction, but the answer is not despair. It is a shift in how we defend. For years the plan was to catch the fake after the fact, to train a detector that tells real from synthetic. That plan is mostly losing. Humans are terrible at it. On high-quality fakes, people guess right barely better than a coin flip, and most of us, asked directly, admit we cannot tell a cloned voice. The machine detectors do better, but they get brittle the moment a fake looks different from the ones they were trained on, which is to say, the moment it matters. So the smart defense stops trying to spot the fake and changes the game underneath it. The single most useful thing you can take from this episode is procedural, not technical. If a voice on the phone, even one that sounds exactly like someone you love, asks for money or a password or anything urgent and secret, you hang up and call them back on the number you already have. You agree on a family code word in advance. You confirm out of band, through a second channel. Because here is the limit we have to say plainly, in the present tense, since it is true right now. Your voice is no longer a password. Any system anywhere that lets you in just because the voice sounds right is already broken. The defense that works is not better ears. It is a habit. There is one more layer, slower but real. The law is starting to catch up. Around the world, places are writing rules that say your voice is yours. Some give you a right to sue when someone clones it without permission. Some require that synthetic audio be disclosed, so a clip generated by AI has to be labeled as such, with the first big obligations landing this year in some regions. These rules differ from country to country. Many are still proposals, and none of them are a global on-off switch, so do not take any one of them as the final word. But notice the direction, because it is the same direction as everything else we said today. Every serious response, the watermark, the callback habit, the new laws, points at one idea: consent and honesty about origin. Now step back and look at the machine we took apart. A voice compressed into a short stack of tokens. Those tokens splitting, roughly, into the what, the words, and the who, the person. Cloning is nothing more than freezing someone's who and streaming new words through it, and it now needs as little as a few seconds of audio to be convincing. The defenses are real but partial. Watermarks that raise the cost of lying without ending it, detection that mostly fails, and so the durable protections are human ones: a code word, a callback, a law, and above all a single bright line. The technology is neutral. The voice is a person's, and whether copying it is a gift or a theft comes down every single time to one question: did they say yes?